After reading the Bacchae, something that was very strange and meaningful to me was actually Tiresias talking to Pentheus at the beginning of the play, and he mentions something that I thought was very relevant to today's social and political climate, and he says something along the lines of, "You rely on force, but it is not force that governs human affairs." And I thought this was really powerful, and this was something I thought was really cool to read. Um, Values that I thought were presented in this dramatic world that were pretty much constant throughout the whole play were obviously being too prideful as a mortal. And there's a quote in there somewhere that says, "Pride more than mortal hastens life to its end." And I thought this was a huge theme throughout the whole thing. And it also was respecting the wisdom of elders, since clearly Pentheus did not listen to Cadmus or Tiresias. Something that I researched more after reading this play was the reference to Actaeon and his death, and how similar it was to Pentheus being ripped apart. And the myth of Actaeon is that he challenged the goddess Artemis and obviously angered her, and she turned him into a stag, and his own hunting dogs ripped him to shreds, and clearly he died. So I thought this was odd that it was pretty much the same ending, the same story, just for angering the gods. In terms to how the Maenads are depicted throughout the play, I thought it was very interesting that Pentheus sort of thinks of them as being beneath him and thinks of them as being wild slave women, essentially, and he wants them to come back into their household work. And I thought a very stark contrast to that was when the herdsman came to Pentheus and was describing his encounter with them in the mountains. And he speaks of them with such an awe at first, saying that they were a sight to marvel at with modest comeliness, instead of being the drunken, wild women that Pentheus makes them out to be. Elvis is on the cover of the modern cover of the play, because of the similar frenzy or rage that he put women into when he was performing at the peak of his popularity, and this was similar to the frenzy or rage that Dionysus puts on the women of Thebes. Two questions that I had about the play after reading. I was shocked that the story of the herdsmen, why the Maenads were so violent when they went and ransacked a neighboring village. I thought it was very intense. I thought it was, and I knew it was Dionysus possessing them. I just thought it was a new level of violence that I was a little confused by. And I also was confused why Cadmus was so cruelly punished at the end by Dionysus by eternally becoming a serpent, when he seemed to be more compliant to Dionysus's ways earlier when he was going out with Tiresias.